দেখা দি কারবার জন্মের প্রথম শুভক্ষণ হে নূতন তোমার প্রকাশ কুহেলিকা করি উদ্ঘাটন সূর্যের মতন রিক্ত তার বক্ষ ভেদি আপনারে করুণমোচন ব্যক্ত
Namaskar. We are celebrating the 150th birth anniversary of Swami Vivekananda by holding an international conference on world religions, diversity, not dissension. We are doing so precisely because Swami Vivekananda's thoughts are particularly relevant and important for the contemporary multi-religious situation that we have worldwide today. This conference has been inaugurated by the Honorable President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, at the Rashtrapati Bhavan itself. During the past 2 days, we have been deliberating on various key issues that touch upon multiple aspects of this very large and complex theme. This has been going on at Azad Bhavan, which is the seat of ICCR. Today is the final session of this international conference. Well, when you think about our preoccupation with these questions today, it is quite natural to recall that only 2 to 3 decades ago, there were speculations in some quarters that with the spread of secular political ideology and sharing of scientific technology, the influence of religious traditions will gradually subside. However, that prediction has proven to be wrong. And we know that the religions of the world are very much with us. A common sharing of advanced technology that has facilitated travel and communication in an unprecedented manner has made it all the more clear to us that we are by no means living in a post-religious era. Swami Vivekananda had observed of all the forces that have worked and are still working to mold the destinies of the human race, none certainly is more potent than that, the manifestation of which we call religion. Perhaps the single most dominant criterion used in the public discourse for distinguishing the largest human aggregates one from the other is by their religious identity, associated with one or another of the religions of the world. Indeed, the world religions still are continuing to be the primary sources from which the largest aggregates of humanity draw their norms and values, derive their sense of collective identity, and seek guidance in times of need. Consequently, the presence of the plurality of religious identities is an inalienable fact of the contemporary global scene. It is a phenomenon that has to be dealt with at multiple levels of exchanges and interactions by all of us. Today, then, the central question before us is, can we move on to a plane of collective existence when the presence of diversity of religious traditions will no longer be seen as a cause for dissension, as it has often been the case before? Is it at all possible for us to view the religions of the world as our common resource that can enrich and empower us in ways that we cannot even imagine today. If we could, or even give it an honest try, we could then claim that we are indeed seeking to carry forward a project that was initiated by Swami Vivekananda. While exploring these issues with the eminent personalities present here, I have chosen this conversational format in order to highlight that the endeavor here is not just to invite a series of monologues, but to find out how can we gradually innovate a setting, especially with a view to facilitate the bridge-building task among the religions of the world. This is a humble attempt to carry forward Swami Vivekananda's unfinished project of enhancing harmony and avoiding dissensions among religions of the world. Speaking of religious identity, let me just use a couple of minutes more for trying to understand the genesis, that is the beginning, and the constitution of religious identity, as it is generally referred to in common parlance or in the context of our socio-political collective lives. Let's begin by asking whether we deliberately choose these identities, or are these, by and large, attributed to us by the accident of birth. The picture seems to me, at least, to be very much as follows. One is first born into a tradition, a religious tradition, belongs to it, and only later one can say that the tradition belongs to one. While considering the question of dissension that often happens in the name of religious identity, it's indeed interesting to note that only comparatively very few of us actually get to choose their religious identity, as that would imply, most of the time, exiting from the tradition into which one is born. There are such cases, of course. There are examples of persons sitting right here that I know of, where one has been born in a specific religious tradition, into a tradition, and then has exited from it and has chosen another tradition. We also know that there are many cases where people have been persuaded, forced, and even persecuted to exit from traditions into which they are born. But even in such endeavors, would we really not hesitate to call that these are cases of deliberate choice? In other words, wherever there is no real option before us, there is no question of exercising choice. Thus, to start with, this is my humble submission that we are born into a given religious tradition, and this is not a case of choosing. I assume, like most of us present here, that to be the case for all four of them. Born as a Hindu, born as a Buddhist, born as a Christian, and born as a Muslim. May I ask whether this is a correct assumption on my part to all of you? Is this a correct assumption?
Particularly reborn. Not very sure.
Let me first say now that I am truly honored for having this opportunity to share the stage with you four. You have before you my 4 clusters of questions that are the same as those that were sent to you, and a request that each one of you respond to the same questions, but only from the vantage point of your own tradition. Do not represent anybody else. Let this be an opportunity for all of us to start from the scratch. Every time I read out one of these 4 clusters of questions, I will indicate whom I prefer would be the first respondent. Otherwise, please feel free to volunteer. Please take your time, fully utilize 5 to 6 minutes for each cluster of questions, and please let us benefit from your knowledge. This means altogether you are having 24 to 25 minutes each for answering all the 4 clusters of questions. Friends, we are now going to listen from practitioners who are also all authors who have very ably propagated the core ideas of their respective traditions. Now, my first of the 4 clusters of questions. Let me say at the outstart that I would request His Holiness the Dalai Lama to be the first respondent once I read out and share these questions with the members of the audience. Number 1. What do you consider to be the principal teaching of your tradition? What is it that has especially inspired you most, impelling you to serve your tradition all throughout your life, that we cannot simply attribute to the fact of your being connected with it by the accident of birth, but will be willing to grant that it could just as well be the case had it been a matter of deliberate choice? In other words, is there a central message that is specific to your tradition that you wish to share with the entire humanity, because you firmly believe that we will all live in a better world if we pay heed to it? His Holiness.
Oh, respected spiritual brothers and sisters, and among the audience, some of you, I think, long time our friend, Ingze. So I'm very happy having this opportunity. Now, I'm Tibetan. I'm one Tibetan. Since 7th century, and particularly 8th century and 9th century, then Buddhism very much flourished in Tibet, and particularly the Nalanda tradition. So that means on the basis of Pali tradition, that's mainly Vinaya practice, the monastic sort of system, discipline, and then on top of that, Sanskrit tradition. There are a lot of sort of philosophical sort of ideas or practice there, and including some yoga practice. That means it's a tantra practice, some yogas, or these things also is there. But, of course, certainly, my parent, not at all educated person, but farmer. I think my father knows better variety of horses rather than dharma. In early period, when you see people choose me as the reincarnation of Dalai Lama, I compelled to study Buddha Dharma, but with great reluctance. I have no interest, but compulsory. Then I think eventually, you see, more study. The Buddhist, particularly the Nalanda tradition, not emphasis on faith, but emphasis on reasoning, experiment. So Buddha himself, you see, state, "Oh, my follower should not accept my teaching out of faith, but rather investigation and experiment." So, meantime, I also developed interest about technology and science. So you see, more as my nature, always curiosity since childhood. So you see, more investigation, more thinking, and also observe world. A lot of problems. Essentially, many of these problems are our own creation. No one want problem. But problem, many problems, we are self-created. Then big question, why? Too much self-centered attitude. And then lack of holistic view. So now, so therefore, one of the, I think, Buddhist concept, the Patit Samupad, Patit Samupad, everything interdependent. So that concept gives us holistic view. Some event, not absolute, not independent, but this event, good or bad, happened because of this factor, because of that factor. So that always brings us holistic view. It's quite useful to reduce narrow-mindedness. Then, other hand, the altruistic sort of practice, right? Altruism, sense of concern of others' well-being. So that direct sort of antidote to reduce self-centered attitude. So this is practice. This is things good, useful. Meantime, you see, this also, you see, immense help to understand other traditions. In spite of different philosophical views, all major religious tradition talks practice of love, compassion, with that forgiveness, tolerance, and for individual contentment, self-discipline. All major religious tradition carry the same message. In order to strengthening these sort of practice, use different philosophy. Different philosophy is necessary. Among humanity, there are so many different mental dispositions. Even within Buddha's own sort of student, there are different mental dispositions. Therefore, Buddha taught different contradictory philosophy. I often say telling people, the contradictory philosophy comes from same teacher, not due to Buddha's own confusion in his mind. One day he taught some different philosophy. The next day, next audience, another sort of. This is not due to his own confusion. Nor he deliberately tried to create more confusion among his followers. No. Then answer is, it is necessary. Different mental disposition. So different way of approach is very necessary. There is immense help for me to understand different traditions. Theistic religion, non-theistic religion, within theistic religion, differences there. Non-theistic religion, also you see differences there. It's necessary in order to fulfill variety of people's wish. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I was born in a Muslim family. My education, my upbringing was on the traditional lines. But when I reached the age of maturity, I developed doubts. I discovered that I am a seeker and was sided with that version of Islam that I experienced in masjid, in madrasa, and in Muslim society. It was a very tragic moment for me. Then unbelievably, an event happened. At that time, I decided to study all those literatures about religion, spirituality, philosophy, to discover the answer of my nature. it is very interesting that at this juncture, I read some of Swami Vivekananda's work, especially letters of Swami Vivekananda. In this book, there is a letter number 175. In this letter, Swamiji has mentioned Islam as in a very shining words. Very shining words. This triggered my mind. This mention of Swami Vivekananda triggered my mind. I decided to re-study Islam. It was a very interesting story. So, what happened? After a long study of Quran and Sunnah and other relevant literature, I discovered that Islam was my choice, although it was not my birth religion. I can say that I am not a Muslim by birth, but I am Muslim by choice. And here I would like to mention that Swami Vivekananda is my benefactor. I can say that Swamiji is my benefactor. He gave me a very important clue at that time, because I am a very rational person, very rational. I try to reason out everything. So, due to this mindset, I became dissatisfied with the prevalent version of Islam and also the Muslim society. But after a long study, I discovered that there is a difference between Islam and Muslims. I was confused between the two. Before this study, I was confused between the two. After study, I discovered that there is a difference between Islam and Muslims. If you want to know what is Islam, you have to differentiate between the two. You have to judge Muslims in the light of Islamic teachings, and not vice versa. Now, what I discovered during this study, I discovered that there are two basic tenets in Islam. Basic tenets. One is that man should make God his sole concern. God is our sole concern. We have to make him our sole concern. And the other is that well-wishing to all mankind. Well-wishing to all mankind. These are the two basic tenets of Islam. And this addressed by nature. In this, I found my Creator. I found the purpose of my life. Why I am here, why I was settled in this planet Earth, why God Almighty created me. All these questions were answered. So I can say that I'm not a Muslim by birth, but Muslim by choice. And Swami Vivekananda is my benefactor. I can say that Swami Vivekananda is my spiritual guru.
Good morning. I am Christian because I was born into a Christian family. And like others, wandered away from my faith, but only very slightly. And I would say the tenet of my faith that holds me to my faith is that tenet of incarnation, that God became human and dwelt among us in human form, in the form of Jesus Christ. And the reason that that is so crucial and important and central to me is because what it says to me is that our bodies matter, that our bodies are not an irrelevancy. Our bodies are not a prison for our spirits, but that there is something very particular, very holy about our humanity, about our human form. And when I examine the scriptures of our faith, the question that we are asked at the end of time, when God comes to judge us, is not the question of how many hours did you spend in prayer or what was your liturgical practice, but did you clothe the naked? Did you feed the hungry? Did you visit the prisoner? Did you care for the sick? And those questions, that kind of ultimacy is what holds me to this faith. That keeping my eye on the eternal, yes, but I am required by my faith to act in the present reality with eternity in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Holiness Moulana Sahab, the Reverend. The principal teaching of my tradition, I was born, of course, a Hindu, but Hinduism is a very broad and diffuse creed. You can choose almost any path thereafter. But I became a Vedantin and a Shiva Bhakta later on as I developed. So my philosophy is Vedanta, my devotion is to Shiva. But let me say, you've asked what the principal teachings of the Hindu tradition. I would say there are three main teachings. First, the existence of what we call the Brahman, which is everything that exists, everything that has ever existed, or everything that will exist, is permeated by, illuminated by the divine force. We feel that the whole creation, so the Big Bang, if it took place, was not only an explosion of light, not only an explosion of energy, but an explosion of consciousness. And that consciousness pervades the entire universe and will continue to do so. That is Brahman. The second principal concept is the Atman, that all-pervasive Brahman has a place in the heart of each one of us. And whatever our caste, whatever our religion, whatever our philosophy, whatever our ideology may be, each human being encapsulates a spark of the divine that we call the Atman. In fact, everything encapsulates the divine, but as we go up the evolutionary chain, it is only when we reach the human birth that we can become aware of the fact that there is a divinity within us and there's a divinity out. And the third concept is joining these two. Joining, the word yoga, as you know, comes from the root of the English word to yoke. Joining the Atman and the Brahman. That is the goal of human life. And there are four main paths to do that. There is the Jnana Yoga, the way of wisdom. In the West, it would be like the way of Plato, looking at the reality that is behind outer events, and not only the events themselves. That is the Jnana Yoga, studying the Upanishads, studying the classics and so on. Then there's the Bhakti Yoga, which is the way of devotion. Whether that devotion is to Jesus Christ or to the Buddha or to your Guru or to any other form of the divinity. Then there is the Karma Yoga, which is the way of works dedicated to the divine. Not just any works, but the sort of work that Yad Krishna is doing, or Mother Teresa was doing, or the Ramakrishna Mission is doing, really dedicated and devoted works to the divine. And the fourth is the Raj Yoga, which is the royal path, which involves our breathing, pranayama, our posture, what His Holiness mentioned, all the practices that had to go into the development. So these are four main highways of joining the Atman and the Brahman. And we can adopt one or more of these paths and pathways, and by doing so, we can use this life, which is a rare opportunity for spiritual growth. We can use it to move upwards on the spiritual side.
In our collective existence, we see that these facts of religious affiliation has had actually dual impact, benevolent and pernicious, be that in the history of two denominations of the same tradition, or when the religious context is definitively plural in character. Swamiji said, Swami Vivekananda, no other human motive has deluged the world with blood so much as religion. At the same time, no other human influence has taken such care not only of humanity but also of the lowest of animals as religion has done. Nothing makes us so cruel as religion. Nothing makes us so tender as religion. Now, we have seen this cruel aspect has been played out in such gruesome manner in the name of religious identity that we really need to understand what makes that possible. What is at the root of it? I have said at the beginning that we draw a sense of collective identity from our religions. Let me now ask, what is entailed in the teachings of these diverse traditions, explicitly or implicitly, that influence us to construe the otherness of other traditions in specific ways that has impact on those whom we do not perceive to be the members of our own religious community? So, my second cluster of question to you is, what is the status of the other in the philosophy of religion of your own tradition? What is the explicit or implicit teaching that is bound to influence the attitude of members of your own community as and when they invariably encounter these others? That is, those who happen to derive their sense of religious identity from sources other than your own, that they are to be gradually vanquished, to be eventually converted for the sake of their own good, that those who are reluctant to do so are to be perceived as doomed, or at best to be situated at a lower level in the hierarchy and somehow tolerated. In other words, the question is whether it is possible for us to be more inclusive. Can these others be at all accepted as followers of a distinctly different path, yet recognizably a legitimate path? If yes, on what ground?
I think I already answered. The variety of people there. Then perhaps I may add one thing. Recently, I saw one report. Out of 7 billion human beings, about 1 billion actually non-believer. So now, my sort of main effort. Of course, I'm Buddhist. My daily practice according to Buddhism. But I never, try to propagate Buddhism. Of course, among Buddhists, of course, it's my sort of responsibility, my duty to explain what is Buddhism. That also, till someone asks you, please explain Buddhism. Otherwise, the Vinaya Sutra clearly mentioned, unless someone asks you the teaching, otherwise you should not teach. So that means respect individuals sort of what's the right. So then, realistically speaking, of course, on this planet, there are so many different traditions there. When Buddha come, or Mahavira come, already some different traditions already exist. See, Buddha and Mahavira never tried to convert all Indian.
Did convert many of them though.
Oh?
Did convert many of them.
Oh.
All
So-
his followers were Hindus.
So now today, it is fact. There are so many religious traditions there in Arab area, in these, in many other areas. Large number of Muslims. In the West, whole Western are Judeo-Christian background. It actually, you see, brought sort of what's it? What is that? Tremendous sort of, I think, help. Provide hope, particularly when individual passing through difficulties. But quite often, including Buddhist, when you are quite lucky, and forget about religion. Then sometimes our destructive emotion become like God. So therefore, it's so many sort of problems that we created. Too much greed, too much anger, too much suspicion. All these lack of practice of compassion, forgiveness. So in any way, all these major religious traditions, in the past few thousand years, they helped humanity, and today also millions of people get immense inspiration. In the future, I think at least a few centuries will remain like that, and after that nobody knows. So that's the reality. So I always say, express conversion is not good. One side, there are a number of sort of Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist centers in the West. I always tell them, should not sort of propagate Buddhism. Only those people, those individuals who really came to know something about Buddhism, then okay. Actually, you see, one German businessman, want to build one sort of meditation center in France. Then I told him, this is not right. Not right place. This is a Judeo-Christian country. So if you really want to build such sort of Buddhist meditation sort of center, then should sort of construct either in Thailand or Burma or even India. Okay. Like that. So, the individual sort of wish, individual sort of versus right is very, very essential. Then now, the question of non-believer. I think a non-believer will increase. So these non-believers are also part of humanity. They also have every right to be a happy person, to a sensible person in the human community. So now, without touching religion, usually I say secular ethics, not talking about God, not talking about Buddha, simply according our common experience, common sense. Common experience means we everybody is come or born from mother, the Raja also isn't born that way. Me as a peasant child, also born that way. And you too, also, I think you fortunately, Bishop Tutu, wonderful father. So the real sort of way of birth, same way. And then everybody. Perhaps I think now I want to tease. This is my longtime friend. Perhaps the peasant child more closer relation with their own mother rather than Raja's or son. Oh, the Rani remain there and someone you see taking care. So from that viewpoint, ordinary simple villagers more advanced. So in any way, that is extremely important. Mother's affection, mother's own milk. See, grown up, full of care, affection from our mother. So that experience remains in deep of blood or till our death. So I think in this whole, I think outwardly, everybody very smart. But in deep inside, those individuals who received maximum affection when you are young, I think deep inside much happier, much stable. That those individuals, today very, very successful, but at the time of young age, lack of affection from mother or without mother, or born as an unwanted child, or abused. Then such person, outwardly very smart, but deep inside, sense of insecurity. There. So that's our common experience. So now important is we must remind people human affection, human compassion is so important. Even health viewpoint. Now medical scientists, now they clearly sort of mentioned the constant fear, constant anger, hatred, actually eating our immune system. More calm mind, peaceful mind is very important factor to sustain our immune system. You just mentioned this. My face looks, let's say, healthy. So, I think through my own experience, I think calm mind, even though the situation is quite sort of difficult, but you can keep your mind peaceful. So that really immense benefit for good health. So sometimes some scientists, when we have some sort of discussions, they say, healthy body, healthy mind. It's not sufficient just taking care about healthy, because of that body's health, medicine, or injection, no. But the ultimate sort of source of healthy body is peace of mind. So that we can educate non-believer. Not important to become religious mind, but remain warm-hearted person, or more compassionate person. That's their own interest, not for next life, but this very life, day-to-day life. More compassionate mind here, and take more sort of sense of concern of others' well-being. Then no room to harm others, to cheat others, to bully others. No. Actually, you take sincere care of their well-being. So automatically, 1,000-year-old Indian tradition, non-violence. The very basis of non-violence is compassion. Take care of their well-being. Then no room to harm them. So ahimsa, not out of sort of weakness or out of indifference. No. Non-violence, ahimsa, you have the ability to harm, but you respect their life, respect their right, so deliberately resisting harm, that's non-violence. With non-violence there, with ahimsa practice there, then religious harmony automatically comes, because you respect the follower of other religion. They are right. So therefore, I think, I feel compassion, human affection. It's sometimes I call universal religion. No need complicated philosophy or creator or Buddha or karma something. Karma means action. So as you mentioned, karma yoga or something. Oh, that action. So everything depends on our action. Action depends on motivation. So that's my view. Too long. Thank you.
You know, Muslims generally divide the world between Muslims and non-Muslims. Muslim world and non-Muslim world. This kind of terminology is completely wrong and Islamic. It has no basis in the Quran and Sunnah. If you read the Quran, you will find that Quran always uses the word insan, insan, insan. It means that terms which was created by ulama in later period, Darul Islam and Darul Kufr, was wrong. The real term is Darul Insan, Darul Insan, Darul Insan. The whole world is Darul Insan. So in this world, there is only one equation. There is man and God, and not man and not Muslim and non-Muslim. That is not equation. The true equation, the right equation is Creator or God and man. I am great believer in God. Also, I am great believer in the oneness of humanity. Then I would like to say that in modern terms, several Muslim countries have adopted the term Islamic Jamhuriya. Islamic Jamhuriya. This term is completely wrong. You know, Prophet of Islam never used this term. Prophet of Islam or his Khulafa never used the term Islamic Jamhuriya. To everyone, every mulk will be called with its natural name. For India is India, and England is England, and Iran is Iran. No country can be called Islamic Jamhuriya. This is wrong. Then I would like to add that concept of perversion is alien to the Quran. I would like to say that if you want to know what is Islam, you have to read the Quran. There are only two sources of Islam, that is Quran and Sunnah. So there is no concept of conversion has no basis in the Quran. Quran uses marifa. Marifa means realization, discovery. So truth is your own discovery. Truth is your own realization. It is a personal choice. If you want to know what is the purpose of life, what is death and what is life, in all those questions, that is in your mind, if you want to understand about these questions, you have to study, you have to discuss. And after discussion and study, you reach to some conclusion. That is your religion. So religion is your personal choice. There is no concept of conversion in Islam. In conversion, you know, there are two parties, converter and converted. Two parties, converter and converted. But this is not the concept of Islam. In Islam, there is only one party, there is you. If you want to know what is truth, you have to study on your own. And when you discover something as a truth, you have to opt for that. Then there is a question. This world is full of differences. Everywhere there are differences. Among family members, there are differences. And in a society, there are differences. Even in one religion, there are differences. So what to do? The best answer was given by Swami Vivekananda. Follow one and hate none. Follow one and hate none. This answer is also mentioned in the Quran. Lakum deenukum waliya deen. For you, your religion, for me, mine. So I have formulated this Quranic verse in these words. Follow one and respect all. Follow one and respect all. This is the only practical solution how to deal with differences. We cannot eliminate differences. Differences are part of life. So we have to manage differences rather than try to eliminate the differences. So best answer is that follow one and respect all.
Christianity has so much variety within itself, and the posture towards other has been contested since the beginning of Christianity. Christianity began as a faith, a tradition, a path in the midst of being other. So the Christian tradition was born out of the Jewish faith, and so stood in the posture of being the other religion to a religion that already existed. But then from that birth of being the other in the midst of a larger religious community, has not had a consistent posture. So you'll see in Paul's letters his advice to Christian spouses of people who follow another faith tradition, that you can, by your good practice and your good personality and your good being, your good exercise of your Christian faith, be an example for conversion of the other. And then you'll see in John's Gospels, in my father's house there are many mansions, or that I have other flocks that you know nothing about. And so there's this constant question of what is our posture as Christians to be in reference to people of other faith traditions and faith expressions. For myself, I would say that my personal posture is that we have really no concept of the vastness of God, and we have little understanding of how it is that God speaks into the hearts and into the lives of even the people who sit next to us, the people who are closest to us. And so there cannot be a one-size-fits-all expression or experience of faith. And so we have to stand in profound respect of the way that other people experience and express their faith.
In Hinduism, in the Upanishads, which are the high watermark of Hindu philosophy and the fountain of Hindu philosophy, it's very clear that there is no other. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyaivaru pashyati sarva bhuteshu chātmanam tato nabhijugupsade yasmin sarvani bhutani atmev abhut vijanatah tatra ko moha kahashoka ekatvam anupashyati. For him who sees himself in every being and who sees every being in himself, there is no delusion, there is no anger, because he has grasped the oneness, ekatvam. So theoretically, in Hinduism, there is no other. However, in actual practice, for various reasons, there have been othernesses. First of all, within Hinduism itself, because with all its great philosophy, Hinduism was based on an extremely unjust and unfair social structure. The caste system, whatever the reason may be, that has come into being, and that created an otherness. I am a Brahman, you are a Kshatriya, you are a Shudra, therefore otherness. Secondly, the Muslims came to India in two different forms. Some of them came as Sufis, bringing the message of love and harmony, like Moulana Sahib has said. The greatest Muslim shrines outside of Makkah, Medina Sharif themselves are in India. The Hazrat Salim the Chishti, Ajmer Sharif wale, Hazrat Nizamuddin next door to us here. These are all Muslim shrines in Kashmir. They are full of shrines where we have worshipped all our lives. That is one incarnation of Islam. However, the Muslims did come as invaders, as iconoclasts. They did kill vast numbers of people. They did break temples. They did have Holocaust. So as a result of that, there has been a very deep-seated, should we say, fear, antagonism, or some kind of reaction in the Hindu psyche. There is no use pretending that that is not the case. That is the case as a result of historical circumstances. However, as we move on, we realize that whatever the geopolitical situation at that time may have been, and why the invasions took place and what happened, that is now something in the past. We have now got to move on back again to the Upanishadic concept of ekatvam. That is why all the Hindu social reformers, the first thing they attacked was the caste system. And that is why Swami Vivekananda was very eloquent. He in fact talked, if you remember Moulana Sahib, Your Holiness, he talked of an India with Islamic body and the Hindu brain. You know, in other words, combining the sort of physical power and spiritual power. That was his famous articulation. So we have got to now put behind us the historical burden of class and caste, and the historical burden of the iconoclasts. And we've got to move onwards and regain the ancient concept of ekatva.
Thank you. Now let me move on to the next concern. Those who are familiar with Swamiji's writings know that in many places he has pointed out how noble ideas get trivialized by people of sectarian mentality. He has joked about how, for example, the idea of universal brotherhood been used by some Muslims and Christians. However, when referring to failures and shortcomings of the Hindu community, he has expressed his disapproval in strongest terms. Sometimes even more harshly, even so harshly that it's difficult to believe, but always, in all cases, with the intent of reminding the followers of specific traditions that they have to live up to the highest ideals of their own traditions, that their social practices and institutions have to comply with those ideals. So my third question to you all is this. Now, I will request you to take on a self-critical posture and tell us openly whether you have noticed any event or a display of an attitude or an institutionalized custom or practice that has been carried out in the past or is still in vogue in the name of your own religious tradition that you abhor, because you are convinced that no matter how that has come about, it is surely against the spirit of your tradition. Please give us at least one concrete example and then tell us what you think needs to be done in order to eradicate it or prevent it.
Now, frankly speaking, I think all major religious tradition, the follower, I think many of the follower, not very serious, not very sincere. I think so. And then another thing. I think various religious traditions. I think the people, because lack of knowledge, the real sort of message of your own tradition, real practice of your sort of tradition, lack of knowledge that simply you carry rituals and kasachuti, some sort of ceremony. And for example, a Christian in the Sunday, service in the church, at that moment looks everybody very serious. Outside the church, simply they carry the usual way, bully, cheating. So these people not very serious. Among Tibetan, among Buddhists, also you see they are. Therefore, religion also becoming instrument of exploitation. Among Tibetan Buddhists also, you see, they're quite quite serious sometimes. You see people, and particularly like me, sit on high throne, and sort of appears as something very holy, and exploit other people.
You don't do that.
So I actually, you see, very publicly criticize about these sort of traditions. And then I often, very, very critical, or publicly criticize, some Buddhist practitioner Buddhist practitioner or Buddhist from Ladakh up to Arunachal. They quite often, wear some ceremonial sort of dress or different hat or instrument. I always telling them, we never heard in Nalanda institution, Nagarjuna have some different hat, and then Arya Deva or Baba Biga, Buddha Palita, they carry some instrument. No. They only think, analyze, and writing, and meditation. That's the proper way. Sometimes we Tibetan Buddhists, too much emphasis, superficial thing. And then wearing, I think you noticed in Ladakh, wearing some masks, and then doing something. Supposed to destroy enemy of Dharma, but fail. So this, we too much sort of involve superficial thing. And many Hindus, they simply sort of worship Ganesh or Shiva or Saraswati or this. I think every Hindu family, most of them, I think morning, some in the form of worship, some flowers, some incense, and recite some Sanskrit sort of shloka, but without knowing the meaning. Then, sometimes I sort of jokingly, you see, since I'm very close, I always consider Indians are historically our guru, really our guru. All our knowledge learned from Indian guru. That's clear. So sometimes I jokingly is telling those worshippers in the morning worship in front of Ganesh or something, and almost it seems like, oh, today my practice of corruption, practice of hypocrisy be successful. How can? Impossible. So these clearly, and then Muslims, I don't know you, but there's some Muslim friend there. I think you also maybe pray to Allah, successful some of your wrongdoing. So it is impossible. Killing between Sunni and Shia, now in Pakistan and many other places. Both the follower of Allah. How can? All these never sort of carry real teaching seriously, sincerely. Just religion, religious faith. Religion is just a lip service. I think we must be, whether you accept religion or not, up to individual. Nobody can force, right? No. I think Buddha's time, they are non-believer. Like Charvaka, a non-believer. Never impose. But intellectual level, argument, debate. That's okay. But meantime, respect Charvaka also. Therefore, this is up to individual, whether accept religion or not. Once you accept, you must be very sincere. You must be serious. That one is my sort of general critics. That's I really feel. So, since I publicly criticize other, so before criticize other, first I myself check. Right from early morning, this day, I should carry Buddha's sort of practice sincerely, seriously. If I tell other these things, I might myself, you see, do different way. That's hypocrisy. Sometimes I you see telling people, religion also, you see, seems teach us how to act hypocrisy. Telling truth, honest, truthful, honest, compassion, forgiveness, and practice nothing. Isn't it? Then perhaps, you see, my own sort of one sort of criticism, or I think disagree. You see, Bosupant, one of the great scholar of Nalanda, and younger brother of Arya Asanga, these two publicly you see hold the Chittamantra philosophical view. So the Bosupant, you see, his writing, Abhidhamma. So there, he explained about geography. So Mount Meru in the center, sun and moon go like that, same level. I am no longer accept that. So I a little bit sort of repair this way, with respect. So, sometimes I used to jokingly used to telling people the Basubat without glass and without sort of the telescope, it looks, you see, sun, moon, almost same size, except slight differences. So he described sun and moon size is except, I don't know, yojana, except one yojana differences. Otherwise 50-50. Sun 51, moon 50. Actually, what's the difference of sun? Huge. Moon is much smaller. So, as a Buddhist, as a follower of knowledge tradition, we must accept the reality. So one of the Buddhist logical sort of approach is investigate. If you see things go against our real sort of, because of the investigation, then we must reject that. So like Nagarjuna, and Chandrakirti, and Kasachudi, Shantadeva, all these great sort of knowledge masters, you see, they even sort of investigate Buddha's own word. If you see certain point which mentioned in Buddha's own word, if goes against our sort of experiment, investigation, then we have right to reject that. So therefore, I also follow that tradition. So Boswant mentioned Mount Meru. I, with great respect, now that is old fashion of thinking, not reality. Excuse. I usually used to do that. So that's, let's say, the critical way. Criticism like that. Okay.
As far as the religion of Islam is concerned, I never found any principle or tenets in Islam about which I can say that I abhor this principle. No. But as far as the Muslim community is concerned, I have a number of complaints towards Muslim community. For example, almost all the present Muslims live in negative thinking. Almost all the Muslims. I traveled so many countries, from India to USA, from India to Arab countries. Everywhere I found that Muslims are living in negativity. They always complain about other nations. Arabs say that America is Adul Islam Raqam Wahid. Other Muslims say America is enemy number of Islam. This is wrong, completely wrong. According to Quranic teachings, and I don't believe that anyone is our enemy. I don't believe this notion. But if there is any enemy, and for the sake of argument, I would say that if there is any enemy, then what Quran says, there is a verse in the Quran, La tastawi al-hasana wal-sayya idfa billati ahsan fa idha alladhi bainaka wa bainahu adawak kannahu waliyyun hamim. It means that do good deed in return for bad deed. And you will find that your enemy has become your dearest friend. What a revolutionary idea. According to this Quranic verse, there is no enemy. Every human being is either your friend or potential friend. So turn this potential to actual. So why complain against enemy? So I completely reject this idea that world is our enemy. They are conspirators. Then the other aspect of this negative thinking is that when you live in negative thinking, you will you will lose greatest blessing of God. Because all the blessings of God lies in positive thinking. Positive thinking. If you are a positive thinker, then you is able to develop your mind. Intellectual development and spiritual development completely is based completely on positive thinking. So those Muslims who are living in negative thinking, in negative thought, they have deprived themselves by spiritual development and by spiritual intellectual development. So this kind of thinking is completely wrong, and I abhor this kind of thinking. Although all the Muslims are living in this thought. Recently, I participated in a Muslim seminar. There were so many Muslim scholars, and all were educated. And what was the gist of that seminar? They said that Muslims are under siege. This was their word. Muslims are living under siege. This is completely wrong. No, I'm in India. I'm proud to be an Indian because I believe that in India, I'm better than all those Muslim countries. You know, there are 58 Muslim countries. I have traveled to those Muslim countries. But I can say with conviction that in India, I found more opportunity than is prevalent in those Muslim countries. For example, if you want to do something, there are two conditions. One, peace, and the second, freedom. Without peace or freedom, you cannot do anything, any great thing. And I can say, according to my experience, but in Muslim countries, you cannot find the both. If any country there is freedom, there is no peace. And if there is peace, there is no freedom. But in India, I enjoy the both. In India, I enjoy the both. Here I enjoy peace, and at the same time I enjoy freedom. So I always live in shukr that I was born in India. Otherwise it's not possible for me to start this mission. I know so many people who were born in other Muslim countries, and they started mission like myself, and they were gunned down. They were compelled to exile with their country. But I'm here in India. I'm completely free. Completely free. There is no restriction for me. So this kind of thinking, that is negative thinking, I abhor it, and I can say that unless Muslims abandon this kind of thinking, they cannot progress.
So to take on a self-critical posture towards my own Christian faith, in the way in which it is practiced, I would choose actually two things to critique. The first would be the attitude that is still prevalent in much of the Christian community towards HIV and AIDS and towards those who are infected with that disease, and the mentality that is a punishment from God. And so the shaming and stigmatizing of people who live with HIV and AIDS. That's something that is changing within Christian communities around the world, but it's not changing fast enough. And so people are still too ashamed to allow their status, their HIV status, to be known. And then the second is a very self-interested one, which is the way in which our tradition, not the faith in and of itself, but the way that the tradition is enacted with regards to the position of women. Women and girls in our religious communities are not uniformly treated with the regard and the respect which they so rightly deserve. There are positions of power in our church communities that are often not open to women. There are whole denominations which will not allow women to exercise roles of liturgical leadership. Within my own denomination, to sort of draw it down very narrowly and very specifically, within my own denomination, the role of women as ordained leaders is still contested in some parts of the Anglican Communion. This past month, we've just ordained the first 2 women as bishops in the Anglican Church in Southern Africa, but that has come as a hard-fought battle. In the church in England, there still hasn't been agreement that women can be ordained bishops. So all of those things are very much a place where I say that there's no tenet of our faith that says that women are not fully human and so cannot fully express roles within the faith community. And I would venture that Christianity is not the only religion that has that issue.
There are 2 areas which I abhor, to use the word in the question. As I said, both of them are not theological questions, they are sociological questions. The first, of course, is the rigidity of the caste system, in which millions of people have been subjected to iniquitous and extremely derogatory situation in society for 1,000 years, for 2,000 years. Of course, now we have tried to overcome that with our constitution. There is absolutely no difference between citizen and citizen. Everybody has the freedom. In fact, in any way practicing untouchability is a cognizable crime. You can go to non-bailable offense. So a great deal has happened in the last 60 years. But this thing that's built into the social structure of Hinduism is something that still needs to be fully eradicated. And until it is eradicated, I don't think we really live up to our Vedantic concepts. The second thing is, again, not theologically, but practically. The position of woman in Hinduism is extremely high. As you say, if there are God, male forms of the divine, there are female forms of the divine. There are goddesses. There's Durga, who combines the power of all the gods in her. And the name of the goddess is always first. It is Sita Ram, it is Radha Krishna, it's Uma Shankar, it is always the woman whose name comes first. So theologically there is no problem. But in actual fact, again, the whole concept of women being a burden, girls being a burden, of female ferticide, which is really a shame and a disgrace for a civilized country. This whole dowry syndrome, which is really sapping Hindu society. I mean, there used to be an advertisement, is now banned. Spend 5,000 now and save 5 lakhs 20 years from now. Meaning thereby abort the girl child now. Otherwise, when she grows up, you'll have to spend 20 lakhs on her wedding. So until social attitudes change, until we realize that women are not, girls are, as in fact girls often tend to be brighter than the boys. I'm not going to give any examples. but the thing is that a woman, I mean, and the ideal couple, of course, is Shiva and Parvati. Parvati never sits at the foot like Lakshmi sits at the feet of Vishnu. She sits side by side. She never sits on the floor in front of the feet. So that ultimately ends in the Ardhangini. You've seen the iconography where a man is half woman and half man in the same sense. So that is what we must work to. So these are the two things I feel which we've got to strongly oppose in the Hindu tradition.
Thank you. While Swamiji was alive, at that time there have been several attempts to bring traditions together with a view to creating harmony. The culmination of this effort was actually the Parliament of World Religions that took place in Chicago in 1893. Swamiji was aware that harmony among religions of the world still remains merely as a goal. He had frankly admitted that so far that goal has not been reached because of a want of a plan that is practical. He wrote, "That plan alone is practical, which does not destroy the individuality of any man in religion, and at the same time shows him a point of union with all others." I now come to the fourth of the cluster of questions. Please take a few minutes each and indicate a plan of action so that a point of union among diverse religious traditions can be demonstrated as achievable on a collective plane. What is it that we are not doing because of which you think that diversity leads to dissensions, even in our time, when technology has bridged physical distance in an unprecedented manner, giving us opportunity to know about each other's traditions as much as we want to? How do we transform ourselves so that in our zeal to emphasize our distinctness, we no longer feel the need to overlook the overlaps that are there and get ready to recognize our shared common values?
Perhaps, I always is telling people the concept of one religion, one truth, and the concept of several religions, several truth. Itself is a contradiction. I think each religion, you see, emphasis, you see, your tradition is the sort of the ultimate or something. So, in order to develop or in order to keep single sort of pointed faith towards your own sort of tradition, the concept of one religion, one truth is relevant. Now, in the terms of community, now here, obviously, now this room. So, one truth, one religion is no longer relevant. Now, several truth, several religions are already there. That's a fact. So, in the terms of community, the concept of several truth, several religion is relevant. In the terms of individual practitioner, concept of one truth, one religion is relevant. So it's a no contradiction. Now, religious harmony. Last now I think several years. One time I discussed the Bishop Tutu. Also, you see, I start since 1975. Firstly, you see, they practice the pilgrimage to different religious sort of holy sites by group of people from different religious traditions. So with that sort of concept, I had one sort of pilgrimage to Jerusalem, I think 2 times. then also in Lohud, and Kasachuti. This Sachuti, Purjukur, Kasa, Fatima, and many Hindu temples and Jewish temples. So that is very, very helpful. Once you being on holy places, and also Jordan, that mosque, the rock, I also pay my sort of respect. Then the Baha'i. So it is very, very sort of helpful. One thing. Then important thing is meeting with practitioner. Exchange their deeper experiences with a practitioner of other tradition. That very, very helpful to understand the value of other tradition. Then another, scholars meet and discuss in academic level, discuss what's similarity, what's differences. Then naturally we will find differences. Then very important to discuss what is the purpose of these differences, different approach. It's simply different approach, achieve same goal. Compassionate person, sensible person, honest person. All different method. Some religions say we all is created by God, one source. So, if you truly believe that, if you implement that, no basis to quarrel among human beings, among brothers, sisters. You truly believe that. So that concept, I think, very, very important to reduce the differences. And then also single-pointed faith towards God as a creator. You see, the effect is reduce self-centered attitude. Buddhist, now here, anathema theory, selfless theory. That is the real sort of demarcation between you and me. But same purpose, you see. He used the concept of atma. So that eventually merged with Brahma. So I used anathema to reduce self-centered attitude. And plus is faith towards Buddha and Bodhisattvas, like that. So therefore, the different way of approach, but same purpose. Once we clearly made that, then hardly no basis to argue, to quarrel, because of different approach, different philosophy. Then another point, your father, beloved sort of was the wonderful sort of the Christian practitioner. As a human being, whenever he was there, he is there, the whole atmosphere immediately, you see, becomes something very warm, very friendly. So, and then daughter, you see, carry same nose. Wonderful. Now, I really believe, you see, you also carry same spirit. That is wonderful, wonderful. So, you see, he, at one point, then still misses one thing, that then, like Assisi meeting, religious leaders sit together and send same message from same platform. Message of peace, message of importance of spirituality. I think ordinary people, in the eyes of ordinary people, millions of people get is some, I think, very significant sort of impact like that. So then your father, told me another point. That's whenever some disasters happen, then people from different sort of faith come together, serve together, help together. That also, I think, very good. All religious tradition teach us, serve people, serve needy people. So therefore, in that respect, I think our Christian brothers, sisters, I think more committed than Buddhist brothers, sisters. So wonderful. So that I think, see, I think many of you, I think already sort of, I think they practice these things. I think you know very well. A few occasions we discuss these things. Now, I really sort of feel India is the only country where all major world religions live together. Yeah. As you mentioned, I think last year or 2 years ago, I was in Jodhpur. I met one Romanian who carried some research work about religious harmony in this country. So then he told me he visited one Muslim village. Village means at least a few thousand population must be there. So he found only 3 Hindu families, but no fear, completely sort of safe, completely sort of friendly with the rest of the Muslim community. So that is India. And then also, of course, I think not worthy to mention between these great scholars. But you see, some of my Muslim sort of friends, they told me, real Islam practitioner should not create bloodshed other people. If you really create bloodshed, then no longer Islam practitioner. Then also, you see, the reason mentioned, Islam practitioner must extend love towards entire creature of Allah. Then the concept of jihad. Jihad means combat with your own negative emotion, not sort of violence or fighting with other people, but combat with your own wrong things or mistake things or inner sort of destructive things. So if you look at these lines, same, different way, but same aim. Now here, my main point is, since this country, religious harmony, not political reason, because of developed recently, no, 1,000 years already there. So this must now because of that, we need special effort to promote this within the country. People, I think, take for granted these things. That's not sufficient. We must educate people within the country. Then also, you see, show rest of the world, different religious people can live together and serve people, not create sort of more problem. So I think we should have some kind of this kind of, sort of meeting, not occasionally, but quite often, and then invite, you see, people from different sort of countries, and this spirit must make living. As India as an example, clear. So please, my Indian brothers, Hindu brothers and Muslim brothers, please make some constant effort and here also. So that, I think now time come. Sometimes we prefer leisure way. And I think now that time already passed. Now we should be more active. So your age now already old, 82. 82. 82, but you should be more active. So more active means more exercise. Your leg. So that's helpful. So sometimes I jokingly telling people, my age also now, they're now 78. So some problem, my knees are these. But then I telling them, my main sort of interest or main commitment is talk, blah, 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 not sports. So if my sort of main sort of interest or commitment is sports, then this really creates a problem. But for talk, not much problem. So I can be active. At least the next 10, 15 years, I think, will be active. Even on wheelchair, come and blah, 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 blah. Thank you.
Diversity or difference are part of nature. We cannot eliminate the difference from life. So the only option before us is to learn the art of management. We have to learn the art of management of differences rather than try to eliminate it. This is the first formula that I derived from my Islamic studies. Then, according to my experience, difference is not an evil, not at all. Difference is a blessing. Why? Because difference creates challenge. Challenge leads to discussion, and discussion results into development, intellectual development. This is the formula of life. I always income differences. I always invite differences. I always invite criticism, because it is criticism and difference that through which we can develop our mind, our personality. So this is my experience about differences. Then, if this is the situation, then what is the solution? According to Islam, the solution lies in the same formula which I cited earlier, that follow one and respect all. Here I would like to give a very beautiful example from the life of the Prophet of Islam. You know, when the Prophet of Islam migrated to Medina, you know, he started his mission in Mecca, then he migrated to Medina. At that time, there were two groups, Muslims and Jews, roughly half-half. So, Prophet of Islam issued a declaration that is called Sahifatul Medina. It means declaration. It means Medina declaration. In this declaration, it was mentioned that Lil Yahude Dinuhum Walil Muslimin Dinuhum. For Jew, their religion, for Muslims, their religion. This is the best formula of management. So, what happened? Prophet himself gave example. One day, he was in some part of Medina, and he saw a funeral procession passing through a street in Medina at that time. So Prophet was seated at that time. He stood up in respect of that Jewish funeral. One of companions said, "O Prophet, it was funeral of a Jew, not a Muslim." Prophet replied, "Alaysat nafsan? Was he not a human being? Was he not a human being?" Here you can see that Prophet was able to discover the commonality between himself and that non-Muslim. So this kind of artificial partition that he is Muslim, he is non-Muslim, this is wrong. Everyone was born by God Almighty. Everyone is human being. So he said, "Alaysat nafsan?" Was he not a human being? And when he is a human being, and I am also a human being, so this is the true commonality. So this is the right solution to the question of difference or diversity. So according to my experience, this is the simplest and natural formula. Simplest and natural formula. Follow one and respect all. And I have no hate against anyone. I can sit with total with love and compassion with anyone. I have no hate in my mind, in my heart. So why? Because I always see man a creation of God. Everyone is creation of God. You all are creation of God. So why I hate? There is no difference. So this is the only formula of living in harmony. In this world, it is impossible to eliminate the differences. So we have to learn the art of management, and by following this formula, we can establish a society of harmony.
Some of the simpler and more practical things to do to build harmony among the religions is to begin working where we agree, to begin working on those things that don't require that you be a person of one faith or another, but to begin to tackle the issues that are of concern to us simply based on our humanity. And so, for instance, I work with the Western Cape Religious Leaders Forum in South Africa. We've come together to answer to some of the issues of grave concern to us, issues of the ecology of the planet, issues of violence against women, issues of hunger and poverty in our neighborhoods. When I lived in the United States, we had an annual 9/11 Unity March as a response to the disaster of 9/11 in the United States. This was in the Washington area, and people of all religious faiths would come together to walk. We began at the synagogue in Washington, went past the National Cathedral and visited various religious sites along the way, to the Islamic center, to the Baha'i Gurdwara, and on down Massachusetts Avenue to end at the Gandhi statue near DuPont Circle. And in each place we were invited to step into the worship space of people of a different faith, and to learn something about the practice and beliefs of the people of various faiths, but also as a witness, as a testimony, that we as people of faith can stand together against harm to any members of the human community, and against harm to the planet, indeed.
The interfaith movement can be said to have begun in 1893 with the first Parliament of the World's Religions, where Swami Vivekananda, in whose honor we are having this gathering, made such a dramatic debut. And from then onwards, in the 20th century, as you know, a large number of interfaith organizations have been set up. Juliet Hollister, you remember the lady who set up the Temple of Understanding that I now chair. There's the IARF, International Organization for Religious Freedom. There's the World Council of Churches. There are lots and lots of interfaith movements. We've had a lot of meetings. The second Parliament was in Chicago again in 1993. The third was in Cape Town, 1999. The fourth in Barcelona, 2005, the fifth in Melbourne, 2009, and the next one in 2014, and lots of other meetings. Now, the methodology of the interfaith movement is to get people of different communities together in a harmonious dialogue, not a Shastrarth. A Shastrarth was supposed to prove the superiority of one idea. That is not the view at all of the interfaith movement. Neither it is trying to build a syncretic new religion. What it is trying to do is to get people from different religious traditions together so that they can better understand, as His Holiness was saying, they can better understand the tenets, basic tenets. I think this meeting itself today is an example of what an interfaith gathering can do. And for example, there could be interfaith prayers. When you get people of 8 different religions in a room all praying, you suddenly realize that if there is a divinity at all, there couldn't be 8 different divinities for each religion. It obviously has to be to the same power. And there again we come to the Rigvedic dictum, Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one, the wise call it by many names. But Moulana Sahib says, choose one and respect all. So there are multiple paths to the divine. Until we realize and respect the fact that there are multiple paths to the divine, there will never be peace on this earth. If we get into theology, whether we are going to be, we have an Atman or don't have an Atman, whether we are going to be reborn or not going to be reborn, the only person who is bound to be reborn here is His Holiness. All the rest of us, we don't know. We're going to find out in due course. But there's no point arguing because, these are theological differences. But there are people, as the Reverend has rightly said, there are areas which in Assisi we did man and nature. We did declarations about the importance of safeguarding the earth, the importance of not allowing the natural environment to be destroyed, the importance of the position of women, the importance of looking after children, the importance of education, the importance of... There are so many areas in which people can work together. And the very process of working together of different religious people will bring about a better understanding of each other. So I would say that the answer to this problem is the interfaith movement. Unfortunately, I must say that the interfaith movement still remains peripheral to human consciousness. Unlike the environmental movement, I was in Stockholm in 1972 for the first UN conference on the human environment. And you see how rapidly that environmental movement shifted into the center of human consciousness. But the interfaith movement is still peripheral. So one of the problems is that it doesn't have any money. In other words, people will spend vast sums of money building churches and temples and gurdwaras and mosques, but the interfaith is nobody's baby. Nobody really ever gives a big endowment to the interfaith movement. So that is...
I think, if you permission, I have been, I think the Parliament, World Parliament of Religions, I think 3-4 times I participated. But except that few days of the meeting, rest of the time, I think seems sleeping. So, firstly, we should be active. Then money will come.
Agreed, sir. I agree with you. That's definitely true. And we have got to be very active. We try, for example, the Temple of Understanding, our India chapter. We are active. We have joint programs with a large number of other organizations. A symbiosis is needed. Different organizations from different religions working together for social service, for uplifting the poor, for healing the sick, for educating the disadvantaged. I think that is the way in which we can really move onwards.
I think promoting the religious understanding, that one way. One way, like you see, there's some crisis. Burmese Buddhist community and Muslim community, some problem, you see, start. And like you see, Sunni and Shia sort of problems. In these sort of spots, I think if we organize some sort of delegation, and particularly like Shia and Sunni problem, I think Indian Muslim really can be useful, can effective role, important role. So I think in future, firstly, some kind of the organization and the people ready to go these troubled spots. Then significant service, if we can reduce these conflicts in the name of religion. And also Northern Ireland. Oh, I think
Sri Lanka also, well, is not looked upon as a Hindu-Buddhist conflict, but that is in fact what it is.
Right, that's right. So I think that please you should think more seriously those troubled spots, mainly using or involve religious name. Then we should be active in such occasion. No one, government cannot do this. The politicians cannot do that. I think in Northern Ireland, I noticed, you see, to politicians, no matter how it's a beautiful word, the trust, I think sometimes is a problem, isn't it? So I think a religious person, honest, religious person also, you see, those honest religious person, I think that should be active sort of role in these sports. You see, then I think that I really feel like that.
Thank you very much. That is indeed a very...
Yes. Well, actually, this has been an amazing experience for me from the moment of conceptualization to the unfolding of this event. Now, I know we are in short of time, so let me just express my thanks to eminent personalities like His Holiness Dalai Lama, Moulana Wahiduddin Khan, Dr. Karan Singh, and Reverend Tutu, that because they have so readily accepted my invitation to join this conversational format, which is a little bit different than the other conferences, where we get mostly series of monologues. And I'm really grateful that they have responded so candidly, so sincerely to the questions that we have asked.